Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, as Ashan already mentioned, this is the fourth day of our workshop or webinar. And today we are going to look at the previous topic as well as the new topic. Uh, Both of them are related actually. It is essential properties of CSS. Let me present my screen now. So I believe that I'm audible and that my screen is hello. Am I audible? Okay. So as you can see in my Adobe XD page right now, I have made a few changes to the website. Basically, uh, I use the colors that were used for hyphen poster, and I have incorporated to the website. And I have also created a logo for us to use. The logo is in the attachment of this Google Meet. You can probably find it from in details attachment. If you go there, you can find it. It's not there for me because I'm not a participant. So download that logo. There are three logos. You have the freedom to use any of the ones that you feel like using. So let me show you the color. You can take the hash value, hex value of the color so that we can use it in later time. Even if you don't write it, I am going to show it anyway. So 31 CD B0 is the first color. 2C8E C4 is the second color. And 3551 A4 is the third color. Those are the three colors that we are going to use. We're going to make a gradient for the uh, nav bar, and the gradient is going to start from the first color and end at the last color. The text is going to be the color in the middle, and finally the footer is going to be the last color, and the submit button is also going to be a gradient. That is basically all the changes that I have incorporated to this website design. Now let me show you the index.html and the change that I have brought in index.html. So basically, I have given a few class names. I'll be explaining all the classes. You can write down the classes then. You don't need to do it right now. Uh, Basically, all I have done is I have just given a few classes to the HTML tags. So that's all the difference that I have made. And you can see that I have removed the size parameter from the images. Yeah, from the image, I have removed the width parameter. So all the images are very huge. And finally, the change is that one more change is that for the list, I showed you how to give a link for contact. I have done the same for about and home. So what you have to know is hash means the starting of the web page. So if you are giving hash, the starting of the web page is pointed. So whenever you click home, it will be the starting of the web page that comes up. Right now, because of the problem with the huge images, if you click home, it will go somewhere else. So by the time we sort the images and make them smaller and all, this will go to the home page. This is for about hash about. This is ID is equal to about. Now I have given that to a div containing ID is equal to about. can remove this. This is just an experiment. So div ID is equal to about. So clicking about, you will go to the about page, and finally clicking contact will take you to the contact page. So and in the footer, I have given made for hyphen in H3 and a class footer. I think that's all the changes that I have made. Okay, I have also given the logo is basically instead of the text that was there, I replaced the text with an image insertion, and the image is in my file img hyphen 1, 2, and 3. These are the three images that the logos that I have created, and I have used one of them hyphen 1 for the image here. And yesterday there was a doubt about how to change the fav icon, that is the logo that is shown on the uh, tab of the browser. So it is basically just similar to linking a style sheet, but instead of a style sheet, REL is equal to shortcut icon. Instead of style sheet, it is shortcut icon, and type is given as image bar X icon. So and finally the href, that is the location of the image. So in here I have given image bar hyphen 3.svg. Now you have to keep in mind that images are of basically two types. One image is lossy image, and the other is lossless image. PNG and SVG are the two file types that give you lossless image. Usually, you have to use either of those for web development. For putting images in the website, it is uh, like images like logos. Like this image, that is the camera image, is actually PNG. I mean, sorry, JPG, and it is a lossy image, but that is fine because the image is very huge, and the size of the file is also very huge. So when you use JPG, it is compressed, and some of the data from the image is lost. That is why it is called lossy. But in PNG or SVG, everything is stored. Nothing is lost. So when you're using logos are usually really small. So it doesn't really affect if you are using PNG. Just for your information, this logo is actually only 32 pixel by 32 pixel, while this camera image is like 1920 pixel by full HD size. That is the size of this image, while the size of this image is pretty small. So that is the difference. And because it is SVG or PNG can be scaled without showing up pixels. That is also a benefit of using PNG or SVG. That is why the logo that we are using is completely sharp. You can see that even if you zoom in, you can see that it is really sharp. There is no pixelation there. But if you go in here, you can barely make out what the image is about. That is because of the pixels getting blurred. So that is how you put a fav icon or the logo on the browser tab. You give link REL is equal to shortcut icon, give a reference to the path, and the type is image bar X icon. So let's move forward to the essential properties. Just as a reminder for yesterday, this is how you write a basic CSS property. This is called a selector. It can be an HTML element, a class, or an ID. Class starts with dot, ID starts with hash, and an HTML element is just the name of the element is given. So that is called a selector. Then we have a property value pair. First we write the property, followed by a colon, and finally the prop values and semicolon. So the part inside the curly brace of the selector is called a declaration, and the declaration is in property value pairs. So this is an example: color colon hash fff semicolon. This is the font color is changed to white by this, and font size is 18 pixels. This is just an example. So there are multiple units when you are putting in uh, the images and all. You have to take care of units. So there are many units. Usually, in all of these, the most useful or most relevant use is one of them is pixels, and there is VH and percentage. These are what you use the most. You can also use EM or REM, uh, but those are relatively less used. These two are really powerful. EM and REM is really powerful, but you use it in a bit more advanced level. In the basic level, it is better for you to use percentage and pixels. VH is also a bit higher level. So once you master how to use pixel and percentage, you can go over with EM and uh, REM and VH. So these are the conversions. You know how to convert centimeter, millimeter, and inches. So we'll give it in pixels. So 1 inch is 96 pixels or 2.54 centimeter. 1 point is uh, 1 by 72 inch. One PC is 12 points. So that's the conversion. So basically, uh, it is better to use pixels because our screen is usually calculated in pixels. But the problem with pixels is that it is an absolute unit. Yeah, so the difference is there is absolute unit and relative units. So if you have an absolute unit, what happens is it's going to be the same. No matter what you do, it is going to be the same. That is, if you give 5 pixels, it is going to be 5 pixels. On the other hand, if you use percentage, it is going to be relative to the parent element. So for example, if you take this website right now, if I give this is this is where the position of the home text that is there. So if I give uh, push the home text by 5 pixels, let's say I give it 5 pixels, so it will only move by 5 pixels. But uh, if I give percentage, it will move by the percentage value, 5%. So when I change the screen size, this is going to be one screen size. When I move this around, the size will differ. So what is the benefit of this is you can create a responsive website. Responsive in the sense that if you are using the laptop or computer, it will be one shape. If you are using phone, the size of the web browser has gone down, and it will go back to the mobile view. Now, these are the properties that are really important. At media is a bit high level, and one part of display. Display has many values. One of those values are also a bit high level. We won't be taking that. Uh, we will only be taking the basics. And then we have selectors, that is pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So instead of this particular name, what you have to take in care is how many columns it has. If it is only one column, then it is a pseudo class. If there are two columns, it is a pseudo element. Now why does it matter? That is the most important thing. So these and these are basically the same. The difference is that one of them is in CSS2 version and the another one is in CSS3 version. So what happens is older web browsers may not be able to support the newer version syntax. So pseudo elements like Internet Explorer and Safari, they are really old web browsers. So these are not applicable to those. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So it is not reliable for older web browsers to use newer versions of CSS. So the bottom two is CSS3. The rest of the above is CSS2. So before we go into border, uh, margin, padding, these three are one of the three of the more important ones. We will have a look at our inspect menu, and in that inspect menu, you can see something here: margin, border, padding, and the last one is the content. So the properties that you saw there are used to manipulate this value. Uh, so if you have an element in the for that element, usually it has uh, if it is text, usually it has a margin and just the content. As you can see the by the color, the blue one is the content and the sort of orangish color is the margin. Usually the border and padding is 0. You have to give extra if you need to. So whenever there is another benefit of this inspect menu, because whenever, like I previously showed you, whenever you are giving a margin and border, sometimes what happens is your image is completely blown off the screen. It is not visible on the screen. You will think that it is the problem with HTML, while actually it is the problem with CSS. It doesn't happen often, but CSS is quite unpredictable because whenever you work with CSS, there are times that uh, it might have worked before, but right now it is not working. Those conditions happen often. So that is what you called border, margin, and padding. So I have put borders under properties affecting looks, while margin and padding is under properties affecting position. Why that is usually you don't use border to manipulate the position of the element. Border is used to give a border, and usually that is for looks. Cursor is used to change how your cursor looks when you are on top of some element. For example, uh, if you can see that when I am hovering over this link, my cursor is changing to the pointer, finger that is pointing towards it. I can use the cursor property to make it happen like this. We will be using that property to do this. As you can see, when I am hovering over the submit button, nothing is happening. The mouse cursor is not changing. So we will use that property to change our mouse uh, point into the pointer version when we are going over the submit button. Uh, then we have list style. That is a shorthand and it has lots and lots of functionality. The one that uh, you might be familiar with is list style type. This is a subcategory of list type, and by using this, you can change the you know the bullet points of unordered list and the values of the ordered list. You can change it, and then there is overflow. This happens when the your like I mentioned, div tag is used for division. So sometimes what happens is your element is going over the div tag. That is, it is flooding into the next tag. Sometimes that happens. So you can use the overflow colon none. If you use that, then it will not overflow, and it will it can also, it is basically used for the this scroll bar on the side. You can basically hide the scroll bar if you use overflow none. So that is one of the uses of it. Then we have text align, usually used with text align center. Using that, you centralize all the text that you want to centralize. If you want it in the center alignment, you can also use text align left or text align right. Then we have position. Position has values, uh, absolute. Then we have position relative, and we have fixed. In this case, in our work through, we are going to use fixed for our navbar, because what happens is position absolute is like you will specify certain coordinates, and the element that you want will be present at that particular coordinate. In the case of fixed, it will if you scroll, it will follow with you. For example, let's say that this is given position absolute. So it is in the absolute position. I can give it here, I can keep it here, but right now it is in position absolute. So when I scroll down, it is going up. But this part, the part with home, insert, draw, view, help, this part, when I scroll down, it keeps coming down with me. That is the difference of fixed and absolute. While relative is, it takes the parent's position. That is, I can have fixed or uh, absolute, and then I can put something relative to those two. We'll be using relative as well. Then we have transform, that is used to change the shape, or change the position, stuff like that. And then we have z index. Z index is like putting our element in the z axis. So why that matters is sometimes what happens, one of your element happens to go below the other element and it is not visible. I'll this will also come up and I'll show you how works. At media is one of the higher level stuff, and it is called a media query. It is used to make your websites responsive. So if you have a mobile version, you will just put in the size of the screen, and depending on the size of the screen, the values that are used, the CSS properties value pair that are used changes. It's basically like a if condition. It's like if screen size is like this much, then use this CSS property. Then we have transition. We use transition for animating basic animations. The higher level animations is done using JavaScript, but the more basic type of animations can be done with CSS itself. And for that, we use transition. Then we have width. This is used to control the width of that the element is going to use. You can give a max width or min width that will determine how much width it uses at most or at least. That is max and min width. Okay, so let's get into it. This is our CSS and this is our web page. So I hope that you if you have any doubts, you can ask me right now. I hope you have got how I put the icon over the tab, and we have main CSS, right? Main.scss. Okay, so this is where we left. We have a UL, size control, image size, and contact info. But why doesn't image work? Because I've changed the class to image cam, That is why the image is so large. So let's change that. Okay. So the image is now small. Now let's start from the very beginning. Uh, Last time I didn't put the this thing. I didn't use margin because I hadn't covered it yet. So it is best practice to use margin 0 at the beginning of the body tag. Margin 0. So what happens is uh, if you have some value for the margin from the very beginning, what happens is sometimes your calculations may go wrong and stuff will just pop out some places. So we will use margin 0, and then we'll have font family. Okay, that is fine. Next, we will use the navbar class, which is this one. We'll be styling this one. So let's start. First, we have class navbar. On the first div, we have class navbar. So let's put navbar here. Dot navbar. We need it to be to follow us. That is, when we are scrolling right now, you can see that our logo and our elements, navigation elements are going up when we are scrolling down. So what we want is we want it to follow us. So for that, we will use position fixed. Position fixed. Save that, and now you can see that whenever we scroll, the logo and the home about contact text is going to follow us. It is going to stay fixed. Now what we want is something invisible. So before that, let us give a background color to make it more clear. We'll give BC, that is background color. And for the color, let's put, for temporarily, let's put black. Now, you can see that it only covers this much. This little area is only being covered by uh, 1 minute. Okay. So this little area is only being covered when you're using the background color. So what we want is we want a navbar that looks like this. It should start from the left and end at the right. So it should cover the entire place. For that, what we do is we give the property top and we'll give 0. That is, it starts at the 0th coordinate from the top, and then we'll give left, which is also 0. So it should touch the left side. So we are giving left 0. Now we want it to touch the right side as well. So this time also we will give right 0. Now that we have done that, it has gone all the way to the right, and now it touches the right side as well. So we have the basic nav bar there, but you shouldn't give bottom 0. What happens if you give bottom 0? If you give bottom 0, it goes all the way down to the bottom, and the entire screen will become black, and you can't see anything. Right now, this is of top priority, so it will be the topmost place, and you can't see any other object. These images will go black, and since it is position fixed, even if you scroll, it will always follow you. So your entire screen will basically go black. So don't give bottom 0. You only need top, left, and right 0. Then what we need is we want to show them side by side. We want to display our elements side by side. For that, we will use the display uh, property, and the value for the property we will be using is flex. And when we do that, you can see that it has gone side by side. the logo is in this side and this is in that side. Now let us give the colors that we have used. So since this is a SCSS, we will use our variables because then we can use it anywhere we want. So first is start color. And the start color is going to be, let's see, this is the color that we are going to use for start color. Then we have the mid color, and it is going to be this value. And finally, we are going to have end color. And for end color, we are going to use this particular value. And you have about 3 to 5 seconds to look at it. Okay. Oh, I don't have to scroll down, so you can copy it down whenever. So up next, what we need to do is we have given background color. That is not exactly what we want. We want a gradient that goes from the start color, goes through the mid color, and stops at the end color. So what we are going to do is we are going to use a property called background image. And instead of URL that comes by default, and we are going to explain it to it which position we want. So we want the gradient from start to end to go from left to right. So you don't have to specify the left part because it is always going to start from the left. So you can say to right. If you say to right, it is going to start from left and end at right. If you say to left, it is going to start from right and end at left. So we are going to give to right. Then we are going to tell what color we want, the colors that we want for the gradient. As many colors you give, that many, it will go through that many colors. The gradient will go through that many colors. So we'll start with the start color. Then we'll go through the mid color. And finally, we will end at the end color. When we save it, you can see that the color has gone through a gradient. The starting is this color. Uh, at the middle, you can barely make it out. It is this color. And at the end, we have this color. So those are the three colors. And now we have created a gradient for our nav bar. Now what we need to do is uh, basically done. Next is the image part. So you can see that this image, the logo that we have used is now sticking to the right end. It is too close. We want it to be a bit more to the right. Like you can see in this case, there is a bit of gap between the edge of the screen and the logo. So we want that gap. How do we put the gap? Now we can see that inside the div tag or inside the class navbar, we have an image tag. That image tag is our logo. So we can give the HTML property img, which stands for the image, the HTML tag for inserting the image. And in that, we will give position relative. Position relative. Now what this does is, if you put position fixed in this one, what happens is it is going to change. it will go down. It will go below the one that is already present, or it will do something completely unexpected. So if you give position relative, it will go into a position that is relative to the parent, and the parent is class navbar. So we have position relative, and we want it a bit to the right side. So we will have left, and from left we want to push it a little bit. Let's say 3%. You can see that it has gone a bit towards the left. Uh, that is basically where we need it. That much of gap is enough. So next is we have the nav part. This is our nav bar. The right align is not being used, so you don't need the class right align. Basically, okay. So we have nav. Now we want to make changes in the nav in this particular section. So what we will do is inside below the image tag, we will give a nav tag, and inside that nav tag, we are again going to give position relative. Why? Because if you give position absolute or position fixed, it is going to give you some wacky results that you are not that you don't really want. So give position relative, and then we want it more towards the right. We want it at the right part. So what we will do is we'll again give left, and how much we want to push it towards the right is the question. So we want it basically quite close to this side. 100% will be like completely to the right. So what we'll do is we'll reduce it by a little, let's say about 80%. Now you can see that it has gone all the way to the right side. We are pushing it. You can look it in this way. How much value should we push from the left? So usually when you use the position value, you are supposed to give using top and left. You usually don't use right and bottom because that is the standard of using it. But sometimes when you give left 0 and you also want it to be at right 0, conditions like that is when you use right and bottom, because you want it at top and you also want it at bottom. Because technically, instead of writing top 0, you can give bottom 100 percentage. So that is basically the same result. But what happens is uh, your screen has a tendency to change. That is, when you are adding content, your bottom is always keeping increasing. You can see that I can scroll down right now. If I put another tag below made for hyphen, what happens is you have more bottom. You have more space at the bottom for you to scroll down. So if you give bottom 100 percentage, what side will you take? What is your bottom? That is the issue. So usually you give top, because then it is always from the starting point, that is in xy coordinate 0 0. That is the top. And say similarly in the right, if you put something towards the right of this, I can scroll to the right, then can keep on going. What is 100 percentage right? 0 percentage is understandable. Whatever the screen size is, it's extreme. Can be 0 of right. But 100 percentage of right means pushing the element 100 percentage from the right. And it is not always clear. That is why we usually use top and left when we are using position. Similarly, for position absolute, position relative, and position fixed, all three of them share the same features. Just little bit of difference is there. So now we have pushed it from the left for 80 percentage. Now what we will do is we will say put this inside nav. You can see that nav, and then we have UL. So UL is inside nav. So for the ease of finding where our elements is, we will organize it as such. Inside nav, we are going to put UL. We have list style type none already. Then we needed to show like this. It is home. To the right of home there is contact, and to the right of it there is about. This is a home about contact. Doesn't really matter about the order. For to change the order, you can simply change it from in the HTML. So we don't really need to change that order. What we need to do is we want one element, one text element, after which to the right of it there is the next one, and to the right of it there is the next one. So we have already used the property for that, and that is display flex. We used it so that the logo and this particular group of list can be side by side. So we can again use this display flex. We'll use it in the UL display flex, and immediately you can see that it has changed. But what happened is it has gone beyond the screen. So we'll have to increase the screen. You can see that it has become home about contact. And now you can see another problem is that there is nothing below edge or above edge. It is like the navbar is completely sliced such that edge is just fitting into it. So we want a bit of space. So image is the property that we use for this. We'll give it a bit of padding. We want a bit of padding on the top. Let's say padding hyphen top. Now, if you use padding, you can use it. What happens is padding is a short form. So it is for all the sides. We'll take 4 values. So if you want to give it to the top, the first value goes to top, 5 pixel goes to top, space. The second value goes to the right. The third value goes to the bottom, and the fourth value goes to the left. So that is how everything works. That is padding, margin, and border. All three of them share this property. That is, you can just say padding, or just say margin, or just say border, and then you can give 4 values, and the 4 values correspond in such manner that first one is top, second one is right, third one is bottom, and fourth one is left. That is how the short form works. So if you don't want to do it again and again, instead you can just give padding hyphen top, or you can give padding hyphen bottom, or padding hyphen left, padding hyphen right. It is also possible in margin hyphen top, right, bottom, left. You can see the short forms here. So right now we want it on top, so we will give padding hyphen top 5 pixel, and we will save it. Now you can see that there is a small gap on the top, and we need a small gap in the bottom as well. So instead of giving it to the bottom, you will see that it is going to automatically come in the code that we are going to use, because I have already tested it and made sure that it works. So that is why I'm so sure of it. Now, next, we have given the padding to the image. Now we want to give a padding to the this text, the link. Why? Because now it is not in the center. It needs to be a bit down. So again, in our nav, the nav class or nav element, we'll give padding top, and this time will be a bit more than the image, because the image already has a size and we have to get to the center of it. So let's say we give 10 pixels. Yeah, this is an all right position. So next we have the li, that is the list elements. These things individually we have to give properties to it. We need a bit of space between them. You can see that just after home the about starts. So what we'll do is we'll give li. In the li element we are going to give a padding, and we want the padding to the right of each element. So we'll give padding right, and then we'll give, let's say, 20 pixels. Now you can see that it is changed. Now there is gap between all of them. So our actual design is coming closer and closer. There is gaps between our link. Now we have links here. These links are always shown in blue with an underline. So what will we do? Our design doesn't have that. Our design is like white text without any links. I mean, without any discoloration or underline or stuff like that. So what we'll do is we have the A tab. That is what we are using here, the A tab, this thing. So for the A tab, we are going to give uh, a property called text decoration. So text decoration is what, like italics, bold, underline, strike through, all of that comes under text decoration. So we don't want any of that. So we are going to give text decoration none. If usually text decoration is set to none by default for everything except for links. Links have text decoration underlined by default. So we have to specify text decoration none to get the underline away from the links. Now it is blue in color. We want to change the blue color to, let's say, white was in our design. So color white. Now you can see we have got into the position that we want. We have given space between them. We removed the underline and we change the color. Now the color is white. That is how we change the color of the link. Now we'll go to the next element. Let's say it is almost done. Let's say that okay, so there is still no gap here. So what will we do for the gap? We'll give a padding. But where do we give the padding? If we give it to the, where is it? The image. What happens is if you give padding bottom, sometimes, not always, sometimes what happens is the padding is going to overflow from the uh, nav bar. So there will be padding down here, but it will not affect the nav bar. What we want is the nav bar to be affected. We want the nav bar to come a little bit down. So we are going to give padding to the nav bar class. The navbar class, we're going to give padding the bottom. We want it at the bottom. So let's say about 10 pixels. Now you can see that there is a bit of gap here as well. And now we have this almost at the center. So it's looking nice, if I say so myself. So that's all the navbar is. After that, we'll go to the next element. We'll see why I have put the filler here later. Right now, we'll look for the next one, which is container. So we are going to make our cameras look a bit more good. So wait, since there is the filler, let me just tell you. I'll start with the filler anyway. So what it is You can see right now that the camera, a portion of the camera is hidden behind our nav bar. So that is an issue. We want it to be a bit down. So I've used this division to fill the place that the nav bar has taken up so that we can see the entire image. So what we are going to do is we're going to give just put a filler, dot filler class, and then we are just going to give a padding top. Padding top, let's say about 10. This time it's not pixel, we are going to give percentage because it needs to change with the screen size. Now when you increase or decrease, you can see that the image is going closer and closer. That is how the difference between pixel and percentage can be seen. You can see that this image is getting farther away when we are increasing the screen size and going closer when we are decreasing the screen size. That is the use of percentage. It always is relative. Now we have put the filler. Next we will go with container. Dot container is a class, and inside that class we wanted to cover the entire width, which means no matter what the screen size becomes, our content should cover 100% of the screen width. So the first property we are going to give is width 100%. So now it will use 100% of the width. If you give it 50% width, then it will only use 50% of the screen size. By default, it is 100% itself. But sometimes what happens is when you are increasing or decreasing the size of the screen, sometimes you don't get 100% utilization. Sometimes your image gets clipped. Sometimes it comes to the bottom. Stuff like that happens. So when you are specifying with 100% here, what happens is it will always use 100% no matter what. It will take this as a priority. Now, just like we did for our logo and this thing, I want these photos to be side by side. As you can see here, these object X, which is basically the image, is side by side. So we want it to be side by side. What we will do then is we will use this value that we have already used twice before. We are going to use display flex. So in the container, we'll do display flex. Now you can see that everything is side by side. You can go all the way here. You can see that everything is now side by side. So now the issue is that we don't want it all side by side. That is, right now you can see that a scroll bar is coming down at the bottom part. We don't want a scroll bar. What we want is cover the entire screen that is possible to cover. And once we have covered that much screen, the rest of the image should come below. That is, there should be a wrapping of the screen. So we will give that property next hyphen wrap. This is the property, and we have three useful properties here. No wrap. That means that it will never wrap. No matter what you do, it will always come side by side and increase the screen size towards the right side. But if you are using wrap, what happens is it will cover as much screen as possible, after which the next comes to the next row. So that is what wrap is. And wrap reverse is the same thing, but the last element will come first. Second last will come second. Third last will come third. So it will be in the reverse order. So we'll use flex wrap, and then we will save it. Now you can see what happened. It covered the first, second, and the third one was going outside. So now the third one doesn't have full space to stay here, so it came down. And then the fourth, and then the fifth one didn't have enough space, so it came down. So that is the use of flex wrap. Next, we want to give a gap between them. You can see that in this one, we have a little bit of gap between these objects, these images. So for that, we will select each individual one and give margin for them. When we are giving margin, you can see that it will come in between here, uh, and the margin will push them towards the right a bit. And so we need to give it margin to the right and a bit to the left because it is like on the screen, edge of the screen right now. So in both directions. So we want it on both the left as well as the right. So we wanted to affect each of the div tags that are inside the class container. So it should be inside the class container and it should all affect the div tag. That is the div tags that contain the image. So what we will do is dot container. Inside dot container, we will give a div tag. So what happens is every div tag that occurs inside the class container will have these properties that we are going to give it. If you put div outside of container, what happens is every div tag is affected. Every div tag inside the body tag is affected. So everything inside div means even these, the filler, the div nav bar, everything is affected. But if you give it inside dot container, so anything that has the class container and inside that whatever div occurs, only those div tags are going to be affected. That is why we are giving div nested inside container. That is also why we have nested all of these. This particular part here means class, tag nav. Inside that tag there is UL, and inside that UL there is LI. Inside that LI there is A. Only such an A is affected. Because you can see right now, inside nav there is UL, inside UL there is LI, inside LI there is A. That A is being affected, that is why it is white. If you were to put something outside, say you don't even have to put it outside nav. If you put it outside this LI, so let's put it here. Instead of normally we would do LI and inside LI we will do A. If you do A directly, href is not necessary. We are going to delete it anyway. Let's say test text and save it. What happens is, oh, it went off the screen, but you can see the little bit part here, which shows you that it is blue and it has underlined. So whatever CSS property that we have given to the link here, A, didn't really work. So you will have to put this A outside of LI. Only then it will apply to this. So you need to keep that in mind when you are using nested statements in CSS. SCSS. You can't nest statements in CSS. You will have to use SCSS. There is a doubt. Please explain the role of the container. It is exactly as the name suggests. It's a container for the images. Anything, to collect and keep it there. Difference between CSS and SCSS, that was the entire class of yesterday. But I'll still take a, this is the basics difference. You see, SCSS has all the features of CSS, but we can create variables and classes and IDs can be nested. That is, there can be a class inside a class inside a class, or ID inside an ID inside an ID, stuff like that. Next, that is, can we add hyperlink to an image that goes to another site? Yeah, sure, we can do that. That is basically possible. What you need to do is you need to put an A tab, and instead of putting text inside it, you will be putting, let me show you. We'll use our logo as an example. For the logo, we'll put an A tag. href will be hash, that is the home. Hash implies home. So we'll have that and we'll close the tag after the image. We'll save it. Now you can see that some changes occurred because now ing is not inside navbar, the navbar class. Ing is not inside that. Why? Because we put an A tag. So there is navbar class, then we have A, and inside A we have ing. So the properties is not, these properties are not affecting this right now. So now you can see that when I am hovering over the logo, my mouse is changing. That is because of uh, the href, I mean link that we have given. We'll scroll down, and when we press this, it comes back to home. So that is how you give hyperlink to image. Now, for the time being, let's delete it out because otherwise, uh, two of the particular one CSS property that we wrote will not work for it. This is the CSS property. Now we have I explained all that for this div, right? Okay. So the div tag is put here. Now we will give it a margin. So we want a bit of gap here, and we want it to be a bit away from this screen's edge. So we'll give, now you can do it in two ways. You can give margin left a value and then margin right a value. Instead of doing that, there is an easier way. I told you that you can give four values to correspond if you give the shorthand method margin. But instead of giving four values, you can give 3, 2, 1 value as well. So what happens is if you give one value, all four sides are affected equally. If you give two values, the first value will affect top and bottom. The second value will affect the left and the right. If you give three values, the first will affect the top, the second will affect the left and the right, the third will affect the bottom. If you are giving four, first will affect the top, second will affect the right, third will affect the bottom, and fourth will affect the left. So we want equal distance on the left and the right, but we don't want any margin on the top or the bottom. So we are going to use two values, 0 on percentage on the top and the bottom, and 5% on the left and the right. Now, if you save it, you can see that a bit of gap came. So it is not apparent right now. Okay, now you can see it. A bit of gap has come between all of them. So the reason why all of them came on top of each other is that the screen size is changing. As the screen size changes, you can see that the image goes down on its own. That is why we are using percentage. Using percentage has that benefit. It is going to be related to the parent. Now we want this object X, this text to be in the center. So, sorry, this one. You can see that object X is in the center. So we want it in the center. So what we will do is we will give the text align, center, and save. Now you can see that object X has come to the center of the image. Okay. So next what we can do is we can style the image itself. We have a bit of you can see curved borders for the object. We are going to give curved border for our object here as well. So next is the image tag. So we have given div tag, we have given container tag, and inside that container we have given div tag. And now inside that div tag, we are going to give image tag. So we can do that, or instead you can just give this class. We can give image cam class because we have already used image cam. You can just reuse this. We'll cut it from there and we'll put it beneath div image cam. We have width 300 pixel and we'll give border 0 because sometimes when you are giving border radius, the border becomes visible even though we don't want it to be visible. So we'll give border 0, then we will give a border radius. Now there is two ways of giving value inside border radius. You can give border radius and then a value in pixels. What happens is the edges will become rounded, and then you have the option of giving it in percentages. If you give percentage, it's not the, when I say, okay, let me rephrase it. When you are giving border radius and the value in the pixel, the vertex of the image, that is the four corners, will have a smooth edge. But if you are giving percentage values, the entire edge will get smooth. So basically, it will turn into an oval shape if you have a rectangle, and it will turn into a circle if you have a square. So let's try 50 percentage. If you give 50 percentage, that's the maximum percentage value it will go. You can see that it is completely spherical, and oval shape is what you get. If you want, you can keep it like that. You don't have to strictly follow this design. This is just for the sake of explaining things better. If you prefer this way, you can keep it this way. So 50 percentage is the maximum. Even if you go 100 percentage, it will still, it won't go beyond this this shape. It's already completely smoothed out. There is no edges left. So now you can give pixel values. Let's say 15 pixel. Now you can see that only the edges have become a bit curved. Even if you give, let's say, 100 pixel, it is going to give you a capsule shape. There is going to be some straight edge somewhere. So even if you give 1000, it's not going to give you a circle shape. You can see that it has maxed out in this oval shape. Now you can this capsule shape, not oval shape. So we only want a slight uh, edge. So we are going to give this shape. Next, we'll have it. We'll make it so that you can see that there is a shadow under only one of them. When I designed this, I assumed that this one is being pointed by the mouse. So what we want to do is, whenever we point over the mouse over the image, what should happen is a shadow should appear. So for that, we are going to use our pseudo classes, and in that pseudo class, we are going to use hover. Hover, by using hover, whenever you are hovering your mouse on top of an image, it will have the effect that we are going to specify. So we'll give the same class name again, image cam, and then colon. After the colon, we are going to give hover. This is the syntax of using pseudo class and pseudo elements. You have to specify which class that it is going to affect, and then the pseudo selector, and then the properties. So we're going to give a transform, and we'll give it translate. Translate in which direction? Capital Y. So it is going to go a little bit up. Actually, if you give translate Y, it is going to go down. The positive values is going to go down. So to get it to go up, we are going to give a negative value, 5 pixel. Now you might have the doubt, why it is going down. So basically, on a TV screen, the pixels start the x and y coordinate. 0 starts from the top, and as the y value increases, it goes towards the bottom. So now you can see that our image is going up a bit, and there is nothing fancy here. Just the image is bouncing up and it is going down when we are removing our mouse. Okay, so there is one doubt. Why can't we see about and contact in the top bar? Well, it is right there. It is because my screen, I have made it smaller. So it is outside the what is visible. So that is why, because I haven't given percentage values here. You can see that in here we have given 80 percentage, right? Yeah, the padding is not percentage values, so it is going outside, and this is left 80 percentage, and there is screen size over there, so it went outside, and it is fixed. Yeah, now you saw what happened right now. When I hovered, the image is coming up. The image is coming over our navbar. So this is what I was talking about. And the way to fix this is give a z index to our navbar so that it will be always on top in the z axis. The z axis means the axis that comes towards you. Higher the value of the z axis that you give, the higher it will be on top of the screen. The closer it will be towards you. So what we will do is to our nav bar property, inside the nav bar, we will give z index and we will give an insanely high amount, really high amount, so that even if something comes up, there is no chance that it is going to be over the nav bar. So let's give 999. In that way, no matter what comes, it is not going to be going to go above our nav bar. You can see that now it is not going above the nav bar. So there is another doubt. Can we align it such that it changes when we change the screen size? Yes, that is, you know, right now what you're seeing is the mobile screen size. Mobile screen size is almost not exactly like this, but almost the size when you are decreased this in terms of pixels, not in terms of centimeters and inches, because definitely the screen size is larger in the case of laptop or desktop. So in terms of pixels, it is almost the size of a phone. And to change it so that for to adjust it for the phone, you are going to use at media query, and media query is really complex stuff. So maybe sometime else. Now we have given borders to this. Now we want a shadow. Whenever we are pointing on the camera, we want it to have a bit of shadow. For that, I have a website that I always use. Just search for box shadow generator. Search for box shadow generator, and the first one that comes from CSS-matic. Go to that website, and here you can see that there is a box with a shadow, and you can adjust it. You can adjust this in real time. So you can get whatever kind of shadow you want. And let's say about reduce the blur, increase the spread a little bit. Okay, so this is how I want it. Doesn't have to be exactly like this. You can decide what kind of shadow you want. Now what we basically need to do is just copy this. Copy whatever is on the screen, and then you paste it inside this, where is it? Inside the hover element. Image can hover. Inside that, you paste whatever you copied. Now you can see that there is multiple stuff here. So the only important one is box shadow. This is the actual element that works. But why we are putting this is because box shadow is not may not be supported by all web browsers. The older browsers don't support box shadow. So that is why we are giving WebKit. So what WebKit does is it will search the internet and it will find a package that allows the web browser to incorporate this feature, and it will run that feature. So for Internet Explorer and MOZ is for, I think, Mozilla Firefox. That is MOZ, and WebKit is the generalized one. So even if the browser doesn't support it, for the this to show up, we are using these two commands. So basically, this alone will work. So that is the box shadow. Now, when we save it, and we can see now that when we are hovering, there is a shadow. In every single one, there is a shadow. Now, you can see that it is really abrupt. I mean, it is jumping up, then down, and it doesn't look really good. So let's animate it. To animate it, we're going to use the property transition, and there is lot of functions in transition. Basically, we are just going to give it a time. So let's say 0.4 s, which stands for seconds. And you can give something else, but this is all there is to it. This is all that you need. Now you have to take care that any change that you make is going to be affected by transition. And if you have a lot of stuff, what happens is uh, because of transition, everything becomes slow. So there is an option to specify exactly what part of the thing that you want to transition. I mean, the animation should only apply to what. So what you will do is you will do transition. After that, you will give the property name. In this case, it is transform. Actually, in this case, it is not just the transform, it is also the box shadow. So basically, we want everything. So we will put all. To give all, by default, if you only use transition, it is going to do all. You have to specify what you want to use animation on. Only then it will work as specific part. So transition all or not giving all is the same. If you want to only affect transform, you give transition, transform, space, the time in seconds, or box shadow, space, time in seconds, whatever you want to affect. So right now, transition 0.4 seconds is enough. I will save that, and you can see that now it takes a bit of time to come up. But when it goes down, it is abrupt. So that is because whenever you are hovering, this part is applied. Whenever you stop hovering your mouse over the image, this part comes back. So we need that to be smooth as well. So one of the option is giving transition 0.5 second on image cam also. The other method is going ease in out. To use ease in out, okay, it's not working. Usually, if you have multiple animation, it eases into the animation as well as goes out of the animation with smoothness. Right now, it is not working for some reason. I have no idea why. So we will use transition property here as well. Transition. all 0.4 seconds. Now you can see the transition in and out really smooth. Okay, so that much is done. Next is the about page. We have to do something about the about page. So for that, we have already got, we don't need to put any class. Why? Because we already have the ID. We can use the ID to make the changes. So we can put hash about, which is the ID for the about tag. I mean the div that contains about. And we are going to give it a bit of space from here, from the start itself. Let's give it a margin, let's say left. We wanted margin in the left side. We're going to give, let's say, 3%, just a little bit. Now you can see that this about is not affected. That is because in index.html, about is outside our about tag, as well as contact is also outside our contact info tab. So what we will do is we want some element h1. We'll give an h1 element because there is no other h1 element inside apart from about and contact. So affecting everything is fine. We will give a padding to it, and it will be on the left side. And let's say about 10 pixels. You can see there is a little bit of gap between it. That's all we need. Okay, so we'll keep that h1 there. Now let's go back to about. We have a size control. What we will do is we'll put it inside about, because it is actually inside about. Where is about? Yeah, this one. It is inside about. So we'll put that inside about. There is nothing that we need to do for this anymore. That is enough. So next is contact info. Contact info. And then inside contact info, one of you had the doubt on the beginning of the day of how to put this and this side by side. The map as well as the contact info side by side. That was one of the doubts. So I've already done that with our navbar, our images, everything. So it's the same way. We'll use display text. Now if you save, you can see that it has come side by side. This is on the left and this is on the right. So next what we want to do is, I think the time is about over. So I'm going to speed it up a bit, and I hope that there is nothing new anymore. Everything is basically the same that we have done. If you have any doubts right now, you can ask while I am typing. I'll try to answer those doubts. So why I'm putting form group here is because I have form group for the form. The form has the class form group, and the first and second input, only the first and second input has class form input. The text area, yeah, the text area also has class form input, but the last one, the submit, has class button, btn. So that is what we are going to do. Form group, and inside form group we have form input. So form input, we are going to increase the size of the input. So let's say we will increase the font size, and that will increase whatever thing is as well. Input field will also increase. Font size, let's say 25 pixel. You can see that it increased. Uh, Next, we'll give it a slight curve in the border. So border radius, let's say about 5 pixels, because the rectangle is really small. We'll give 5 pixels. Now you can see that when I gave a border radius, border came up. You don't really want to, it looks ugly. So we don't want that. So we will put border 0, and it completely disappeared. So we can't have that. We want a border, but it should not be like too ugly. So let's say 0.5 pixel. That will give a uniform border on all four sides, because I only mentioned one value. We'll give it solid. There are multiple options for that. Instead of solid, you can give what was it? Yeah, dashed lines. You can give dashed for dashed lines and stuff like that. So you want a solid line. So solid, let's say black. You can see that there is a solid black line for our stuff, the bar. Next, what we want is we want the button property. So I'm going to give the button class outside, because a button like that can come anywhere. So if I put it inside form group, what happens is only the button that is inside these particular classes will be affected. Whenever I am putting a new button, that button will not be affected, even if I want it to be affected. So we're going to make it bigger, and to make it bigger, we're going to give padding, and we're going to give padding on all four sides. On the top and bottom, we want 10 pixels. On the left and right, we give 25 pixels. You can see that immediately became bigger. We don't want a border. And since the color is not going to be white, it is going to be the linear gradient that we used before. So since that is the color, without any border is also fine. Border radius, we want it as a capsule. And as you saw before, you give a really high value, let's say 50 pixel, it is going to give you a capsule, as you can see. So in terms of pixel, it will give you a capsule. If you are giving percentage, it is going to give you a spherical shape, like circle or oval shape, stuff like that. So now we want the background color. We are going to use the background image property from our navbar, copy it, and paste it here in the button. You can see that it has changed. But now the problem is that the text is black, and it is really, the visibility is less. So we are going to give a color property. We are going to give white. Now it is a bit more visible, but the this is very small. The font is very small. We are going to give a font size that is comparable to the ones that are over here. We gave it 25 pixel font size. So here also we will give 25 pixels. Okay, now it is a bit bigger. Now what we want is, since there is no border and all, whenever we are hovering over the thing, is not showing, the mouse is not changing. So it's really difficult to understand whether it is a button or just an image. So what we will do is we'll give the cursor property, and in that we'll give pointer. We'll give cursor pointer, and now you can see that my cursor changes whenever I go inside it. And now finally, when you are clicking it, for a split second, before we go to the next page, you can see that there is going to be an outline. As you can see, the black outline that comes. We don't want that outline. So to remove that, we have the outline property. We'll give none. So what happens is, now when you click, the black outline doesn't come. So contact info, we have already written that over here. So let's just delete this one. Uh, Now what we want is, we want this to be in the center, and we want it to have the final color. Where is it? This one, the final color. So what we will do about that is, uh, we'll change. Sorry, we had food, right? For OT was the class that we used for the footer. So that is the class foot. Now we are going to put, let's say, text align center. That will align the text to the center of the screen, as you can see. And now we are going to give a background color. B, G, C is. Now we have the background color. And in this color, we are going to give the end color. Save it. You can see that now, but there is a white space beneath our text. So what do? We will make it so that there is bit more space below. So we'll give a padding bottom, and a really little value is enough. Let's say 0.1% is enough. You can see that it went all the way down, and even if you scroll, you can't see any white portions. So now we need to change the color, because black on this dark color. So we'll give a font color and change it to white. As you can see, now it is turned white. Now we have an H3 element inside here. So what we will do is make it so that there is a bit of gap above the H3 and below the this text. And also let's make it a bit more thinner, because it doesn't have to be bold. It looks odd when it is bold. In H3, we are going to give padding to the top. Oh, sorry, padding to the top, and it is going to be, let's say, 1%, just a little bit gap. Okay, now we have gap. The bottom, there is already gap, so we don't want to put padding bottom. Now we can change the font weight, and we are going to give lighter. I have already told the reason for giving a lighter instead of pixel values there. So we will give font weight lighter, and it looks a bit better. So the time is already a whole lot more than I took more time than I intended to. So tomorrow's class we'll look at JavaScript, as well as how to change this thing for, the map is not the same way. So we'll be adjusting the map a bit more, and we will look at JavaScript as a programming language that is used for web. So that's all. That's it for today. Thank you.